And now, is it okay to make your grown-up kids pay rent from the moment they start working? It's already got us talking in the break. 0207 862 2222 is the number, and we'll speak to you in just a moment. Now, Marvyn, you're probably still a few years off making this decision. Your kids are still a bit young. Would you ever consider charging them rent when they start working?
No, look, I think, I remember my first ever paycheck was £332. I worked in retail. Of that, £100 was...
A month?
A month.
Yep.
This is a while ago when minimum wage was £3 something.
Yep.
And I had to give £100 to my mum, which is just under a third.
Wow.
And her thing was just a flat £100 every child, every month, which on paper...
Regardless of how much you were earning?
Just regardless, £100 a month. She was flexible. It wasn't like a bullish thing, but it was like £100 a month. And it made sense in terms of the level of contribution based on the cost of the time. And doing a little bit more even now wouldn't be a big deal. I think they could probably afford it. But actually what I'm trying to do is create a platform for my children to be able to go off into themselves, into the world they're on their own. And so it's them saving and investing that money, if that's what they were doing, is the number one thing. So I would either take it from them and put it away for them and reveal it to them at a later date, or I'll just not take it. If they were responsible with money, I just wouldn't take it unless I needed it as a part of a fundamental cost of living exercise, which is different.
As a person about to enter the two-parent zone, you have 2 children. Now, your eldest is boy or girl?
My son is 9.
Is the oldest, and
yes.
your girl's...
My daughter is 7.
Okay, so what happens if your son is the smart one that will save, and so he starts working, he's saving half of his money because he wants to deposit, you know, he's good with money. Your daughter, however, you're getting the feeling she burns a hole in her pocket. She's just going to spend that. There's going to be no saving at all. Can you adjust your parenting and do different rules from one child to the other?
I parent them separately as 2 individual people because they have completely different behaviours.
And that doesn't cause issues?
It always causes issues, but for me, it's about explaining it the best that you can and then just drawing the line, because it's inherently always fair in the end, but they both have different ways of existing. I want my children to understand that their way of existing is seen by me as their dad and adapted to, rather than just one rule, wipe them both out and with one idea and then just make them suffer for it. I just don't think that necessarily is good for them.
Carole, were you charged rent?
No, I wasn't charged rent, but when I was 18 and had just left school, it was suggested to me that I might like to go and make my own way in the world and find my own place.
Politely.
So there wasn't a lot of choice, really. I mean, they would never have chucked me out, but I think what they're trying to say to me is, you know, 18 years, because me staying on at school for my parents was a hard thing. Lots of people in my village left school at 16, simply because their parents couldn't afford to keep them on the school. My teacher came to my house and said to my parents, can you afford to keep her on for exams? And my parents, it hadn't occurred to them. Anyway, so yes, so I think they thought by the time I was 18, they'd done enough at that point. So yeah, I did move out at 18 and a half. I got my own flat. And by God, what a shock that was, because you don't realise. And that's why I would charge kids rent now, because they need to understand what things cost. I can't go to a supermarket these days without spending 100 quid, and I don't get very much. So I think kids need to understand what that means. They need to know what 100 quid buys. So it's paying 100 quid for your rent, your laundry, your food is cheap at half the price, frankly. So I would want my kids to learn how to go out into the world and behave and use money. Money shouldn't be your enemy. It should be something you are in control of. And I think you can't do that unless kids learn some quite tough lessons early on, that give me some of your money and I'll show you how to make that work. And I think that's what, it's not being cruel to your kids, it's saying, understand how the world works.
Okay, Joanne, hold on, sorry, we just got loads of calls, so I'm going to try and fire through as many as possible. Joanne from Lancashire, how do you feel about charging your kids rent?
Oh, if I had my time over again, I would charge my children rent. I grew up in a fairly affluent family. I mean, we weren't rich, but there was money. And my parents, they never charged me any rent at all. In fact, they were over, I don't know. I had a free car, brand new, petrol, everything was paid for.
Tell me why, Joanne, you would charge your kids rent?
Because I don't understand the value of money anymore. Well, I just don't. I don't understand the value of money. I'm like Carole. I can go to the supermarket and spend £200, Carole, and not know what I've spent it on.
I think there's a difference here, though, Joanne. It sounds like you're putting things in your basket you don't necessarily need. By the sounds of what Carole's saying, is Carole just it's the cost of things now.
Yeah, it just shocks me to my boots, Joanne. I go and spend 100 quid and I haven't got 2 meals in there. I've got a couple of things in the basket and I think, my God, how did that happen?
But Joanne, that's very interesting. So not charge rent and you feel like it didn't teach you anything about money. Amy from London, what's your view?
Yeah, I completely disagree. Good morning, by the way. I'm with Marvyn. I do charge my 17-year-old, but I put it in an account for him for his future because
Does he know?
It's impossible for young children to buy a property, and I couldn't take that money for myself. So I'm putting it for his future.
Does he know though, Amy?
Sorry?
Does he know you're doing that?
Oh, yes, yeah, absolutely. So he's learning the value of money, which I completely agree. They do need to know that. He gives me a portion of his wages. We put it into an account, and I've told him, this is for your mortgage, for when you want to buy a property, because
Amy,
for me to charge him rent,
I get you, but Amy,
impossible.
then you're doing the saving for him. Is that a teachable lesson? Does he?
But then he would just waste the money. You know, he would just spend it.
Because he doesn't know how to deal with it, Amy. That's the point, isn't it? You're not teaching him how to handle money. You're taking it away from him because you don't trust him with it.
But the fact that you can take it and put it into savings is a really lovely thing to do. It's just whether you tell them or not, and you've decided to be honest with them, which is another way of parenting. I just was questioning you on that. Amy, thank you. Sorry, I'm trying to get through every caller on this one before the end of the show, and we are quickly running out of time. Emma from London, do you charge your kids rent?
My kids are too young for me to charge rent, but what I would say is my parents charged me rent. It was a certain percentage of my wages. It teaches you to budget. It teaches you that you have to pay for your food and you have to pay for your roof over your head and you have to pay for those things and that those things aren't free, and it teaches you responsibility with money. Most of the people I know that didn't end up paying rent and stuff are the ones that end up getting into trouble with credit cards and with this and that because they think money's free and that they don't have to pay in life.
Or whether it actually teaches you a bit of respect for your parents and what they're providing for you because it's financially hitting you in your pocket. However, Amy has a point. Young children now are really going to struggle to get on the property ladder. They are really going to struggle to get on even in a rented accommodation. They are going to have to scrimp and scrape everything. Is it fair for parents who maybe had an easier route to getting on the property ladder than their children will to take money from them, making that even more difficult? I mean, what Amy's doing is saving up for her son, which he probably will need.
The electric is expensive, the gas is expensive, food is expensive. Parents are getting hit in the pocket for that. In the same way they're getting hit in the pocket for saving for themselves to get somewhere.
Emma, the point is as well as that some of the parents we've had on the phone today don't need the money. Other parents do need the money from their kids to keep their kids there. Because, you know, a lot of them will be getting on in age. They might have retired. You have a finite amount of money when you've retired. So you might need the contribution from your kids to actually keep the house running if they're there.
And Karen, that doesn't sound like best practice to me, which is an overall problem, because this conversation probably needed to start much younger, because this is not about teaching them how to budget. You haven't taught them how to budget. You've taught them, this is basically a tax inside your own house. And that doesn't teach you. Taking tax at your PAYE doesn't teach you how to manage your own money.
I've got about 60 seconds. Karen from Glasgow, charging your kids rent, is it a bit harsh?
Absolutely, yes. I had 3 boys, they went through university, they had part-time jobs. They also were able to put a wee bit away while they were doing their part-time jobs, so I never took any money from them. And then when they did actually finish university and got jobs, they stayed with them for 2 or 3 years, allowing them to save up so that each of them could get a deposit for a mortgage, and it worked out for all of them.
Karen, it sounds like you had 3 very sensible boys, and I think maybe that is the nail on the head in this conversation, is that parenting isn't just a one-size-fits-all, because children aren't all the same size. And so maybe you have to couture your parenting, as Marvyn alluded to earlier, to each individual child or to the children that you have in front of you. But it is an absolute minefield, one that I am currently discussing. It's coming very, very quick, my way. And I'm following under your issues that you'll have, and I'll have 2 kids. Now, I think I should parent them both the same, but you're telling me now I have to parent them both as individuals?